special episode of the Game Industry Executive Summary. It's April 8th. This is Casey, and today we have the privilege of working with the awesome team at Newzoo to bring you the state of PC and console gaming in 2025. Helping us present and dissect the report is the analyst himself, of course, Manu Rosier. And to add additional flavor, commentary, notes, and thoughts, and maybe some funny jokes, is the dashing Dave Thier.
There will be no funny jokes.
We're full on serious business.
This is games. Games are serious.
So welcome on board, gentlemen. I think let's kick it off. Manu, you'd like to present and walk us through it. And then, of course, we'll open the floor for both me and Dave to ask questions. I already prepared some questions, but of course, I'm sure other things will come up as you walk us through it.
Absolutely. So let me share the screen.
Yes, please.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah. So first, a few comments. So the report has been released today. It's been in the work for many weeks. It's been presented at the GDC back in March. I'm only presenting today a selection of slides from the report. I think these are the ones that are the most valuable. There is way more in the full report, so I encourage you to have a look at it. It's free, completely free, and it's available on the Newzoo website. Then the second thing I want to say that whenever you see numbers about players, about engagement, we are talking about players from the 37 markets that we are covering. These markets, unfortunately, don't include India and China at this point in time. And then when you see some revenue numbers, they relate to 6 markets. So it's Western Europe and the US, but all of that is referenced whenever you look at the slide in the final deck. So let's go. The first topic I want to talk about is Playtime analysis. So last year we released our first Playtime analysis, and I think it made a lot of noise because the trend was not looking that great. We tried to double down this year on this analysis, and we went a few layers deeper. So we're going to look at console level. We're going to look at type of genre of game level. So let's jump in. To start with here is historical data, quarterly historical data, evolution from the start of 2023 until the end of 2024. So the good news is that we have the market is experiencing a year-on-year growth of 6% in 2024. And when you look into detail, in this slide, we split between free-to-play, pay-to-play, and Call of Duty. The reason Call of Duty is a separate item, it's because it's only one game on all platforms, and you cannot really split between Warzone and the premium game. So that's the reason it has its own bucket. But it's also interesting because you can see that the growth of Call of Duty was 18% in 2024, thanks to the good performance of Black Ops 6 compared to Modern Warfare 3. And then the other bucket that's showing a growth in Playtime is the pay-to-play bucket. Just one thing I forgot to mention is that the Switch is not included in this data because we don't have the ability to track the Switch as well as we do for Xbox and PlayStation. And let's say that the Switch being such a unique ecosystem, which mostly consists of first-party games, it's also not so much of a problem when we look at the console numbers across the board. So where is the growth coming from in 2024? So it's been driven by a few games. Fun with Friends is a trend that we see. So games like Eldivers, Minecraft, Pole World. These are the kind of game you can play with friends. Action and adventure also has been doing well. And you can see that some catalog titles have been doing well. So Elden Ring, obviously, it's a catalog title, but there was this expansion pack. Then the relatively good health of a Rainbow Six Siege. I think it's probably on the back of what they've announced as new content in recent months. Minecraft still performing well. Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 had an impact on Playtime from the Amazon Prime series, TV shows. And then, when you look at the new games, Helldivers 2 by far, EA Sports College Football also did quite well. And then Paul Wall, Path of Exile, even if Path of Exile was released at the end of the year, I think it was already available maybe in early access. And then Tekken 8 and Black Myth Wukong also did quite well. If we zoom in on the free-to-play, and we are looking at kind of the games that performed well versus the games that did not perform that well, you can see that Roblox did very well. Fortnite, and we'll have a deeper look at Fortnite later. The First Descendant, which was a free-to-play release, I believe, mid-year, which had a great splash at launch, but probably didn't hold its promises. And then Marvel Rivals. It's impressive to see Marvel Rivals in this type of net incremental hours, while it has only been released in December. So it's quite interesting. And then on the decline, we had Counter-Strike 2 and Counter-Strike Go, which is slightly below. But let's not forget that there was a refresh of Counter-Strike the year before, so it's not that much of a problem. League of Legends is slightly down. Apex Legends, The Sims, and Overwatch 2. And for Overwatch 2, it's obvious that there was some cannibalization from Marvel Rivals when it was launched. If we look now at platform level, what we can see is that the index was rather stable on PC after 2 years of growth. But what the outlier here is more the PlayStation, which is significantly up in 2024, while Xbox has a smaller growth. So zooming in on PlayStation 4, the big thing that happened is in Q4 2023, Fortnite released the OG season, and then it was instantly followed by a new chapter and by the launch of Lego Fortnite. That's one thing. So it basically raised up the bar to start 2024 at a higher level than 2023. And you can see that the share of Fortnite was hovering around 10-11%, and then jumped to 20%, and then it slowed. It went down a little bit, but it's still closer to 15% than to 10% when you look at across all quarters. There was also the introduction of Roblox, which represent constantly about 3% of the playtime. And our assumption is that these two combined elements were net incremental, so there was little cannibalization from other games. And then on top of that, Call of Duty performed very well in Q4 2024 with the launch of Black Ops 6. So we see the share is at 16%, while it was only at 12% the year before. But we think that there is a bit more cannibalization from the Call of Duty playtime coming from other games. But all in all, you can see that really Fortnite raised the level, the bars from Q4 2023, and it's been working quite well since then. Okay, so this is another interesting one. So we look through the lens of what is the age of the games players are spending time on. I think the first call out in this slide is the 67% on PC is the playtime spent on games older than 6 years. So that's a lot, right? That's 2/3. You can see that on console, this is not that much, but it's almost half of the playtime spent on older games. And when we are talking about older games, we are talking about the Fortnite, the PUBG, the Minecraft, the Roblox, all these games, the Counter-Strike Go, the League of Legends, the Dota. And these games, and these are the kind of games where players spend a lot of time at the same time. So not on many games. And this is something we will see also when you look at how many games do we actually play. And the other thing is that new games are basically fighting for 8% of the playtime on PC, for 15% on the playtime on console. So there is a broader appeal for console player to play new games than on PC, but still it's a relatively small proportion. And then when you look at what do you have in the playtime of these 2024 launches, you still have a lot of yearly sports title and yearly title on console. You have the sports title and Call of Duty, basically. And the only games that made it to the top 5 were Helldivers 2 on PlayStation and Palworld on Xbox. And also, let's remember that Palworld is not available on PlayStation, and Helldivers 2 is not available on Xbox. So they were kind of almost exclusive titles, console exclusive titles. And when we look on PC, it's slightly different. You have Helldivers at the top, so it really performed well. Call of Duty also is there, but at a lower share than on console. Marvel Rivals is there, so it's interesting to see Marvel Rivals already on PC, but not yet on console. But also, when you look at the share, Marvel Rivals is only 0.4% of the whole playtime, which wouldn't make it the top 5 on console. And you have Path of Exile that's doing well. The players are clocking a lot of time because it's typically the type of game where you spend a lot of time. And then Once Human is there, and also it started well, but it's kind of faded away quickly. But the time clocked during the launch and the few weeks and months after launch also allowed the game to be in the top 5 on PC. Yeah, and now we just look at the games that have been released. Players playing games that have been released in the last 5 years. And we remove the annual titles. And in that case, you see that only 6% on PlayStation of the total playtime is on games that are not yearly franchises. And there, the picture is slightly different. We're basically removing Call of Duty and the sports title in there. And this is where you can start seeing Marvel Rivals appearing on Xbox, for example. You also have Valorant that's in there. Valorant was released on console in 2023, if I remember correctly. So it also started to pick up. And it's still a game that is less than 5 year old, even if it's not 2024 game. And you have the First Descendant, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Black Myth Wukong. Let's not forget that some of the games that are, let's say the premium games that are released, that are non-annual franchises, they might just have a short experience, a short story, like 10 hours, 20 hours. And in that context, if you look through the lens of playtime, they cannot compete with the Fortnite and the other games where players will play every day, potentially. So I think it's not so much of a problem because you can only play so much time on these more single player story driven experiences. Now we switch to the genre. And what do we see? So how is the evolution in terms of playtime? Shooters keep growing. So they went from a share of 22% in 2024 to in 2021 to 28%. Battle Royale is shrinking, which feels a bit counterintuitive, but at the same time, you can see that Fortnite share within that Battle Royale has gone from 43% to 77%. So it's becoming on almost monopolistic, the share of Fortnite within the Battle Royale ecosystem. It's like they've killed all competitors. I know PUBG is still doing well, but there are not so many other Battle Royale games around. And then role-playing game has been going up, but we had good games also in the role-playing genre in the past few years. We had Baldur's Gate 3. You still have Diablo 4 that's very consistent with Honkai Star Rail, Hogwarts Legacy, and I would say the definition of RPG in this context is rather broad, but also because we cannot have so many subgenres within the RPG. So Baldur's Gate might not be the same kind of RPG as Hogwarts Legacy, but Hogwarts Legacy still has role-playing game elements because of the progression system and the quest and things like that. But I would say a game like Hogwarts Legacy probably at the border between being an adventure and an action-adventure game and being an RPG. But in this context, we're more having that one in the role-playing category. Looking at platform level, shooter is king by far on PC. I think it all comes down to the mouse and keyboard story. It's historical stuff. While sports are more popular, very, very popular on PlayStation, popular on Xbox, but a bit less. Shooter is also doing well. And then Battle Royale is more popular on console than on PC, because on PC you would have the Battle Arena, typically the League of Legends, the Dota 2, that you don't have on console. And you would have Counter-Strike Go, Counter-Strike in shooters on PC that you don't have that much on console. So all in all, I think it also reflects the availability of some of the games. But it's just player taste in interface, or player can actually control the games. And slight difference between PlayStation and Xbox. And you can also see that sandbox is everywhere across and is on all platforms. So shooter, sandbox, role playing, most of the genre are similar between the platform, between console and PC, which is more split in that way. Adventure is still there. So this is the Playtime. Any question at this point about the Playtime part, or shall we move to the next one?
Maybe we can. I don't know. It's up to you. Do you feel like you want to do that first? I have some thoughts and questions already.
Yeah, let's go, and then let's go 5 minutes, and then I will transition to the next one. Okay. So we keep it.
So some surprising takeaways for me. Fallout 4 showing itself again. I mean, I knew that, and obviously we saw the game, spike.
Mm-hmm.
But that impact to this level, for me, my takeaway is like cross media is really important for studios moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting other point for that is that we've already reached the point where we're not picking up a lot of like new gamers, right? People who didn't play games before but are playing games now. But that's like a really, really broad term, and that includes people that are playing Candy Crush. So I think what's interesting about Fallout 4 is I think it does point to an ability for a traditional, nice looking, expensive game. I think that they are picking up new players in that category, which is encouraging to see, because that's what we would like to see. Like we'd like to see people becoming gamers, and not only like we love mobile, they should be playing mobile, but like to be able to also engage with an experience like Fallout 4. My guess is that's coming from people that wouldn't necessarily have done that otherwise.
I think what's remarkable with Fallout is that there was not really new content based on the TV show. They did not amplify that much only with promotion, probably. So it's very, very organic. It's almost like a missed opportunity, maybe for the gaming franchise, that they didn't amplify that with content, with a DLC or with something else. So for me, it also showed that there might be maybe a disconnect in the strategy. So they're like, okay, yeah, we're doing a TV show, but is the studio, are the devs doing anything about that? And in that case, it's really great, but I'm not sure from a revenue standpoint, it had a huge impact. It had an impact on engagement, but if you don't have that much new content to sell, then it has a limited impact. And also, there is no Fallout 5 announced. There is nothing new regarding Fallout coming. So I don't know.
And it's also important to know it's only $20 right now, which that makes a really big difference. They're not trying to tie it to a new AAA release at $70. Someone who wants to check it out, they're $20 or Game Pass. So there is a lower barrier entry.
I hope it will inspire also the big players to see that, yes, transmedia can work, but you have to coordinate everything. You have to have a clear strategy across the board. Your content outside of the gaming and everything, and align that as much as possible. And then you would have a huge impact.
I mean, I would have loved a DLC. It doesn't have to be like a full-on game. I think for something like Fallout. Okay, so the other thing that I kind of was surprising to me. I mean, am I reading this correctly? So, on average, now I'm taking across all platforms, 8 to 15% of all playtime in a year is on new games. Is that correct?
On games released in 2024. Yes.
Exactly. So, for me personally, I don't see annual games as new games. I count them as a subscription, more or less. Yeah. It's a hidden subscription.
But then you have to look at this one.
Okay, yeah. So this is what I'm trying to get to. So are you telling me that in 2024, only 5 to 7% of all playtime was on a new game.
Yes, absolutely.
This is, I mean, because I know you have later you have like a line showing the amount of games releasing. It's like, okay, this is is the word disparaging for a developer who's like working on a new game?
Disheartening, I think, is what
Disheartening.
you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But this is playtime again, as I said. You're competing with games that are there full speed, 1st of January, all year long, that have been around for a long time. So it's also something to take into account. When we look at the number of games played, then the picture is a bit better, because you will see that the proportion of number of games you are playing is higher for the new games than the playtime. Because
I think we've seen
playing
this.
a game is different from the playtime.
And I think we've seen this in other media, right? So if you remember, there was like a period when people just watched The Office basically all the time. I don't know if there is a show that currently fills that role, but like that, that kind of, you watch old comfort food. I remember like at my in-laws' house, The Office was just on constantly, and it doesn't mean that they don't value new releases. That does mean that there is a much less time associated with them. So like, it's the HBO model versus the Netflix model, right? HBO, let's see, what the HBO model should actually be instead of what they've rebranded to Max, and makes some sense. But like the core of the HBO model is not that they want you to spend all your time watching HBO. Plus, they want to release two shows a year that are undeniable. And so that's playtime is really important for understanding that. But as Manu says, there's a difference there, kind of what people are valuing. Also, you can put these things into different boxes in your head.
Absolutely. And then finally, it seems like, I mean, if we put battle royales together with shooters, they account for 40%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, or that is actually exactly for 2024.
Yeah. It's rather stable, so I think that's interesting. Maybe there's been a shift between the battle royale into the co-op shooter, like we see with Helldivers 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's what I had. I'm not sure, Dave, if you have any other thoughts so far.
So we move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Now let's look at how many games do we really play. First of all, a quick introduction into the methodology. So the source we've used is the telemetry data taken from over 1 million players within Newzoo's panel of users. So this is really user data that we are monitoring. We consider that the player has played a game in a year if he's played more than 2 hours. It means that we remove all the Steam refund policy. We match the refund policy of 2 hours. If you've played less than 2 hours a game, we consider that you've not really played that. You maybe have tested it, you maybe have played the demo, but you've not really played it. We also only take games where at least 10 players have played it in our panel, because otherwise it would just mess the numbers, let's put it that way. And then we also have full year coverage. So the idea is that our sample year over, if we want to track historical data across many years, we have to make sure that our sample is representative enough and that we don't change significantly the player we are monitoring. Because the new player that are replacing the old one might have totally different taste. And so we're making, to ensure this continuity, a player must have been in our sample for a full year to be shown in that year. So that's also, we are smoothing all the sampling. The reason we are explaining that is that Steam always release stats about how many games players are playing, and you can't really reconcile it. Just to be clear, this is the methodology, but we can adapt that to change the number of hours, the number of players. It's just some filter that we apply. And also in this section where we are going to talk about PC, we are not going to talk about PC, we are going to talk about Steam, because we're only tracking what's happening on Steam. So what's happening? Players are becoming more selective and playing fewer games. So on average, a person plays about 10 games, 9 games, depending on the platform. I know there is it's very surprising on Xbox. We don't have a clear explanation, but on Xbox, the fact that players are playing less game is a bit counterintuitive, as the Game Pass offering is increasing. But one of our assumptions is that you have many games you can try, but it doesn't mean you're going to play more than 2 hours. So maybe there is a disconnect between what players really want to play on Xbox and what is being offered in the Game Pass. But this is just we don't have intel for that. But for us, it was a surprise to see that the number of games being played on Xbox by players is going down through the year, while the catalog of games on the Game Pass is going up. PlayStation is very stable. PC has been going down. But all in all, when you look at this, 8, 9, 10, 11, this is very close between the platform, and we're not talking about massive differences neither. So another picture that's not really very encouraging is that more and more players are playing less and less games. So if you look at the light blue bars here, blue blocks, you can see that in 2024, 34% of the players only play 1 to 3 games on PC, and it's around 1/3 is the same on console, a bit less. And on the other side, players that play 11 plus games, which is more the omnivore players that are happy to play different type of game, different genre, while this is going down or stable at best. And this is a trend that, this is a trend you see on Xbox, for example. And this is not great, because if players are only playing 1 to 3 games, the probability that they will buy your new game is very low. And it means that with time, more and more players are just playing to their lifestyle games, their Counter-Strike, the League of Legends, the Fortnite, and they are not even playing anything else. And just one caveat is Fortnite is considered as being one game, but the reality, it's more than it's a different experience in there. So players might be playing Lego Fortnite, which is more a survival game, and not playing a battle royale game. So I think there is this element, and for Roblox it's the same. It's Roblox is considered as a creative game, but there are so many experiences within Roblox that you have always take everything with a pinch of salt. When you look at the age of the games being played, you see something similar to the Playtime, but slightly better. So again, this is the number of games people are playing. This is not the time they are spending. Okay, the time spending is more dependent if it's a live service or not. Here is more just the act of playing a game for more than 2 hours. So half of the PC players have played games that were 6+ years, mostly. And when you look at that, the top played games would be Counter-Strike, and then PUBG, and then Dota 2. On console, it's very similar, actually. It's about 50%. So it's like the behavior of the player is the same in terms of actually playing games. But on PC, they would spend more playtime on all the games. But they would still play the same amount of games. And then the games less than 2 years represent 1/3 in that context. So it helps a little bit. You remember the 5-6% we saw before about the time spent on new games, or like 8 or 15%. Here it's more in terms of games actually played. So it's a good news for games that have a shorter time to be played, or like if it's single player or story and that kind of stuff. And then when you look at the game, you see that trend is similar between PlayStation and Xbox. It's Fortnite everywhere. GTA 5 is there. So it's there. It was, I don't remember it was that much present in the Playtime, but it's there in terms of gameplay. So players have at least played that game. And then you have FC 24 in this case, and then Call of Duty. And interestingly, Rocket League is always there, also there in PlayStation. So it might be because it's within the Epic ecosystem. So there might be incentive to play Rocket League when you play Fortnite. So they are kind of maybe linked together. And then on Xbox you have Minecraft being there. On PC, what's interesting is to see you have Little Company in there. So maybe not that popular in Playtime, but it was there as typical game that has been played by many PC players. And and PUBG then is back. Now we look through the lens of the MSRP. So the premium games, which is this is the green, these are the green blocks. They are priced $50 and more. They are very consistent on console, about 50% of the all titles play, but they are very low on PC, only 20%. And I think it makes sense that if you're a console player, you're more likely to buy a premium game because there is still this culture of exclusive on console that you don't have on PC. And also the PC player are more price sensitive than the console player. I think it requires more to convince a PC player to buy a game at launch at $60 than it is for a console to convince a console player. So where is the difference? What's the bucket of free to play is around 23-25% across the board, maybe a bit more on PC and on PlayStation, but not, and a bit less on Xbox, but I think this is not significant. So the biggest difference is coming from the indie title bucket, so the games that are priced $30 and below, which are overrepresented on Steam compared to the other platforms. So that's basically premium on one side, and then indie on the other side, and it's kind of a shifting between console and Steam. And what we also see is the increase of the the mid-price game, which is basically Helldivers. If you look at last year, and that's probably the reason why the share has grown on PlayStation from 11 to 14%. In that context, it's the Helldivers effect that you don't see on Xbox. So that's our explanation for that. Here we look at more the PvE, PvP, and PvP, PvE share for each platform. So there is an increased share of PvE games on Steam. It's gone from 47% to 58% through the year. So it's more some of the cozy games, some of the survival games. Again, Helldivers is there, Pole World is there, and all of these games are picking up. And this is a trend you see more on the PC than you see on console. And this is at the cost of PvP and PvP, PvE on PC, to be fair. It's even more on the cost of the PvP, PvE games. On console, it's rather stable. You can see there's not that much to say on console at this point. But we thought it was interesting to see the trend on PC. So the co-op games are winning on PC. Okay, now what we are looking at for each platform, we are looking at players that play one title through the year and players that play 30 titles through the year. So if we look at the left on PC, if you only play one game per year, you're playing a shooter for 46%. So that's massive. That's the go-to game when you are only like a mono game type of player. The second one between being a battle arena, so it's logical. We saw that also in the Playtime that it was the similar trend. But if you play 30 titles, then the proportion of shooter is going down significantly. You are trying way more other games. It's not like you're going to play 30 shooters because they are maybe not 30 shooter you want to play. So you become more omnivore, obviously, the more titles you play and you try different genres. And in that case, you can see that the ones that are growing are the others, the adventure, the role playing. So basically, everything is shrinking except the battle arena, the battle arena, and the shooters. So I think this you really know the usual suspect also in battle arena. So basically, you're playing no game or just a battle arena game. But if you are a type of player that plays 30 games per year, you barely play any battle arena. So I think these are all. The fact that you're an omnivore player is almost exclusive, mutually exclusive from the fact that you will be a battle arena player. And when you look at on console, the picture is slightly different. The distribution is more balanced between all the genres, between battle royale, sports, adventure, shooter. And I think you remember we saw the reduction of battle royale playtime in the previous part. But in the case of actually just playing the game, you can see that battle royale is still the game that players will play the most. No, not the most in terms of playtime, and they just playing it. So they would play at least one time in the year a battle royale game. Maybe not spend that much time, but on console, I think it's much higher than it is on on Steam, as you can see. Also because Fortnite is not in the Steam data, so you don't see Fortnite on the left. Let's not forget that. And you don't see Valorant neither. These are not available on Steam. So probably the picture on PC would be slightly different if we had to include the Fortnite on Epic Game Store and also Valorant. At least for it will just increase probably the shooter battle royale part, but then you would also need to include League of Legends, which would increase the battle arena part. That's the caveat that we only capture Steam in this example. And and then other than that, increased diversification, you can see. What's interesting on PlayStation is that once you start playing 30 titles, the adventure block is increasing very significantly. So an adventure game is not like the preferred game if you don't play that much. Probably also because an adventure game by definition is not a lengthy game. So you cannot just play one adventure game through the year, because then you don't play. You have so much. You're not playing that much actually if you just play one adventure game per year. While sport title is different, you can play all through the year. Battle Royale, you can play all through the year. But once you start playing more games, then this is where basically you have this theory of people have a few games they play every day, and then whenever there is a good action game, a good adventure game, a good RPG game, then they will pause their lifestyle game and they just play a new game for a few hours or for the length of one playthrough. And it's very similar between PlayStation and Xbox. So that was the second part about how many games do we play.
Again, good stuff. I have some additional notes.
Yes.
So if we look at premium games, players are being selective and playing fewer games.
Mm-hmm.
But are they buying more games? Because I'm thinking about, you gave a note in the beginning about, okay, if people are playing a game less than 2 hours, they're not counted, I believe. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, but are people buying more games?
Without
playing them, you mean?
Sorry.
I mean, we all do that, I'm assuming. I've got Age of Wonders 4, which I'd love to play, but I have not.
So there will be more notes later when we are going through the slides. I don't know if I should, jump the gun here, but so with a lot of sales happening, I mean, obviously we all know this, right? Especially the hardcore players, they buy all these games during the sales, but do they play them or not? So what I'm trying to get to here is that, okay, we see that they are being selective and they play fewer games, but are they buying more games?
Yeah, this is something it's potentially an angle we can look at, like the average playtime for the games being bought. This is something that we can probably expand the analysis to. I'm not sure how much we can get all this data, but that's certainly. I don't have an answer because we've not looked through the number of games bought and the playtime. Also because it's very challenging, as you have seen, the source of the data is not the same, so it might be challenging to do that, but it's certainly it's very interesting also to look at that.
Dave, I know you were mentioning that we're all victims of doing that.
Exactly. But that might be more. I think that is actually a market for us. I think that Steam at one point released a survey and said that like 90% of the games that people buy are like played less than an hour or something like that. And even this was a while ago, but I'm assuming that that does remain like a viable market for us, is unplayed games.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're the story overall is lifestyle games and free to play, and that impacts premium games because people just can afford to be way more selective. Like it used to be, you want to play a game, you bought a game, and now you only buy a game when you want to buy a game, and that's a massive sea change in the industry.
You don't need to buy games to play games. That's
exactly.
Yeah. And I think there is also this element of the technology has been slowing down, which means that many older games are still relevant, even as a single player games. You can play games which is 5. You can play an example of Batman Arkham Asylum, which is already it's almost like a 10-year-old game, but it's still a very good
Arkham
experience.
Asylum is like 15,
exactly.
over 15 years old. I think.
But it's still fine, okay?
But yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Most of the games that were released on Gen 4 or the equivalent are still absolutely playable. But
as like when Arkham Asylum was released, a 15-year-old game would have been unplayable. And like not just from like a lot of these are not just from a graphical perspective. Like there's been a lot of refinements to the way that we think about game design, the way that we think about control, that are pretty much codified. Like when the Arkham Asylum came out, that combat system was revolutionary, and that was sort of the foundation of all third-person melee combat.
Exactly. There's not been so many jump in technology, in gameplay, or I mean, for me, the latest biggest innovation in gameplay is Battle Royale. Like the true game-changing innovation in terms of gameplay has been Battle Royale.
Yeah, and even that, that for one thing, it came from the Hunger Games, which that's what Brendan Green told me, that he just wanted to make a video game of Hunger Games, and also like, we had seen modes like that approached that. The big thing was they did it with more players, and they did it sort of a particular format. Like it wasn't new. It was well conceived of evolution.
Yeah, for some reason it was not popular before. You have to wonder why it was not popular, but popular back then.
The number 100, I think, is just a very, very powerful number. And like people can understand that. They can think of it very quickly, and that let it just spread very quickly. Yeah,
and the other one big innovation was everything like relating to being creative, like Minecraft. These are kind of the big games that. Like revolution in gameplay that happen maybe every 5 to 10 years. But
and then Roblox, which is a revolution in structure, basically.
Yeah, your distribution of experience and user generated content. So we don't have that right now. That's probably what's causing the fact that the market is not stretching further. But at the same time, you also have to wonder. Even if a new compelling concept would come, it would most probably be cannibalization from existing concept. It would not just bring new players to the industry, because we've kind of already in a saturated situation where we've reached almost all of the players available, certainly in the Western world, and also it's picking up in Latam and in other countries. But
I think there are still, like, I think, again, to the Fallout 4 point, I think there are still a lot of people that play games, but play mostly mobile games. And they are still available to be brought into an ecosystem, into what we think of as the broader gaming ecosystem. Yeah. I think that is still an opportunity. And like right now, it's impossible to say how it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. And it's going to happen in some way that we don't expect. The Wii effect, it'll be the Wii, but not the Wii.
Gentlemen, I have another note here then. On because I'm happy that you mentioned AA, and I know we saw and talked about some articles and like people expressing like AA is dead, but in this report when we talk about AA, I think it was a slide or two above. What are we counting as a AA game here?
The AA is what I'm showing on the screen right now. So this is the purple.
So it's just a price distinction.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's interesting, because I think that there are definitely games that I would consider AA from a production and publishing point of view, which are still charged premium price. The biggest recent one comes to mind is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Yeah, and I think here we are talking about AA and indie. It's more of in the game that we see that are the top played games. There is Helldivers 2 is.
Yeah, I would call that
AAA. Is it a AA? That's always the question.
Yeah, it's AAA publisher. Like, there's no way to say Sony is not a AAA publisher, but I would call that. Yeah, these lines are impossible to draw, right? But I think that from a production point of view, I'm thinking Helldivers 2 as AA game. Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to move over. I mean, one final awesome note, which is I love that, as players play more games, they are more diverse in their options of choosing games. That's really cool to see.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm excited for this next because it's going to be a meditation it'll be a meditation on mortality through the view of live service games. So that's good.
This is my part, okay? This is my baby. Just to be clear, what is recursive nostalgia? So the idea is that we have now live service games that are average 5 or 10 years on the market. So they are getting older and older, and they have basically a history about themselves. So how much do they use that history to refresh their own formula? It's not about using nostalgic collaboration from other medium or from other games. It's really a game within itself. That's why we call it recursive in that case. So reintroducing temporarily or permanently a past version of the game, older maps, older meta, weapons, classic mechanics. That's an example. The goal is to recapture the feeling of the original release or earlier expansion. What it is not is crossover event with nostalgic IPs. So just to be clear. So we have a few use cases that we had a look at. The first obvious one and the most successful probably is the Fortnite. So they did it once. We saw that in the first part of the deck in November 2023. Massive success. It was more about bringing back lapsed players because through the year you had the OG players that kind of left for some reason and they were replaced with new players. It kept growing and at some point it plateaued. And then it allowed the lapsed player to come back without removing the existing players, because the existing players were also interested to try the OG part. So they did that, very successful, and you saw it allowed them to start. It served as a leeway for the new chapter and for the introduction of new modes like Lego Fortnite. So I think it was a very smart thing that they did. You had the chapter 2 remix 1 year after, where it was more combination of all location combined with some music collaboration, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Ice Spice. I basically came back to the game after 6 months for that season because I thought, oh wow, I remember this location. I was so great. I want to be there. And then they after that they introduced Fortnite OG, which is permanent mode in the same way that you have the build and no build mode. Now you have the OG mode. So the good thing about that is they probably realize that Fortnite OG is not for everybody because it's a very basic experience. You have no vehicle, you have not that many weapons. There are so many things that feel really raw compared to our Fortnite look in 2024. So they decided to make that a separate experience. So what was the impact? So this is the engagement numbers. Okay, the daily active player numbers. It's more an index than anything else. So you can see that until the OG season, it was hovering about 100. So 100 is the base of the index. It was in mid 2023. So you see that they tripled the engagement basically with the introduction of the OG season. Then it served as a leeway for Lego Fortnite. Then it went down like it usually do. I think that it was sustainable, but not for so long, and it came back to the same level around 1 year after, around mid 2024. But then they managed to make it work again, but not to the same extent. Okay, so it went from 1.8 effect instead of 3 last time for the chapter 2 remix, and then the introduction of Fortnite OG increased it a little bit. So it was massive success the first time they did that, but it also kind of faded away. But all in all, it really allowed them and the whole market to have a very good 2024 year when it comes to playtime. So it had a massive positive engagement impact. Apex Legends. So now we're going to look at title that did some stuff, but not to the extent of Fortnite. So Apex Legends, they introduced Launch Royale, which was in season 23. So gameplay was restored to its state at the game launch. First iteration of a Kings Canyon map. Some the default legends were available, and also some two more than that. So they really put it bare bone like it was at launch. and there was no impact. We can't really detect any impact. It was at the launch of a new season, but we don't see that this new season had a better launch than other ones. So either the players were not that nostalgic, or the OG players are still in Apex. They've not moved on, and you still have mostly already OG players, and which means that you don't get new players by launching the launch royale. So that's the other possibility. Or maybe the event was a bit underwhelming and was not enough to really create new hype. And it was not in the news as much as it was for Fortnite OG, obviously. Overwatch 2. So Overwatch 2 has been struggling for a while. And they introduced Overwatch Classic. It was to go against Marvel Rivals, I believe. But again, there is no evidence that this specific event had an impact. When you look at the average daily active user index per event, there is nothing showing that it was a very successful event. What they did is that they went back to the 6v6 format without role restriction, the original heroes from the launch day with the launch day ability. So everything went back to the launch of Overwatch 1, basically. And let's not forget that Overwatch 1 cannot be played anymore. It has been completely replaced by Overwatch 2, so it's impossible to play that experience anymore. But unfortunately for them, it didn't show a massive impact, and it was only a 20-day event. But I think if I read correctly, they're going to introduce against the 6v6. So they probably have some learnings from that event, and they will have a more long-term strategy in the future. Destiny 2. So here they introduced, there were the return of some iconic raids, Vault of Glass, King's Fall, Crota, and Return. So the way Destiny is working is that some content become inaccessible. And in this case, this was raids from the first one. There was a short-term boost in engagement, 5 to 10%, but there was nothing really lasting neither for the 3-1. So King's Fall had the biggest impact. It was 11% boost for a certain period of time, but then the engagement went back to where it was. So it doesn't feel like unvaulting. And just to be clear, it has been unvaulted, but not vaulted again. No, it's just always available in the game. So also because it's not a temporary event, there is no, the long-term effect tend to fade out because it's becoming just normal to have that. There is no reason to keep playing it. And it's just one event out of many events that you can play the game. So what can we learn for that? I think that the recursive nostalgia only works if it's part of a future-oriented strategy. It's a double-edged sword. So it can reignite interest, but sometimes it lacks long-term staying power. So we basically only have one successful games out of the sample that we looked at. Players, they might just prefer more polished experience than the version of a game that was 5 years ago. And it can also be perceived as uncreative or exploitative. So it's like developers are running out of ideas, so they are just bringing back the old stuff. You see that so often in movies where they prefer to do a remake or a reboot because they kind of run out of idea. You have the same with video games, actually. So it's interesting that within a live service game, you have the same strategy as you would have with an IP of single player games. At some point, there is a remake, there is a remaster, there are things happening. And the pitfall of short-term tactics. It's not working if it's not part of a wider and more long-term strategy. I think that's really the message. If you're just doing it for doing it, then it will fade away very quickly. You have to activate the lapsed player that you are bringing back at the moment you are doing this nostalgic event. It has to serve as a leeway for something bigger than just the nostalgic. And then, the incredible success of Fortnite. They reactivate lapsed players, they boosted engagement, and they use that as a launch pad for new content. So you need a future-oriented strategy to sustain player interest whenever you are doing it. And then there is another path, the reset approach. So instead of organizing nostalgia event, you can explore the idea of resetting the game. Why do you do that? Because very old games with it becomes more and more difficult for new players to jump in, because you have this entry barrier of inventory, of understanding of the game mechanics, multiple expansion, patches. You can feel overwhelmed as a new player. So let's say that the reset approach can be great to bring new players to a franchise. The nostalgic events is more to bring back lapsed player, but the reset approach is maybe to find a new audience. So you start everything from scratch. You level the field is even, because every start again from zero. Everybody's naked at the start of World of Warcraft. To give an example, veteran players they will go faster in the progression, but still they start like you with nothing in the beginning. So it's really, they wipe the slate clean. They let everyone start on equal terms. You can also re-experience the story. Because if a MMO RPG with which story, you kind of forget everything that has happened, and again, as a new player, you're like, oh, what has happened for so many years in the past? So reset, you just start from the beginning again, and it's quite. I think it's a nostalgic element for players playing that they can relive the moments, the epic moments they lived in the past, and then there can be a refresh of core mechanics. So the developers can learn from what they've done in the past 10 years, that it work or not, and start from the beginning with that. So there might be some quality of life improvements that are worth putting in the beginning. Also, the graphics will be better in the new version of Reimagined Classic. So a lot of positive things. Now, let's have a look at one of the most successful one is World of Warcraft. So they introduced World of Warcraft Classic in 2019. It offers a complementary experience to sustain player engagement. And you can see that it really works together with the standard experience in terms of bringing engagement. And you can see on the graph, this is the consolidated monthly active user for both experience. So it's additive, as you can see. The light gray is the light green is the classic, and the dark green is the standard. So what we consider, and that it has brought a layer of engagement on top of the war experience. There is obviously some cannibalization, but we still think that it's more amplifying, and also it allows them to create events and to release content on two different timelines. So one can be how can I say that? Can boost the other one. So you release some content in Classic to boost the engagement in World of Warcraft, and then after that you release the content in the standard versions. So it's very very complementary experience, and you can see also that whenever they release the big content on Classic, it boosts the whole experience basically. The other example that we have is Overwatch. Overwatch, the game was dying in terms of engagement or being very low compared to launch. So they say, okay, let's release Overwatch 2, make it free to play. It helped, you see, at least in terms of engagement, it helped a lot. You see the early access and then the release, to the point that the active players is higher post-release than it was before the early access. So they kind of help to increase the baseline of player playing the games, but it doesn't stop them from being vulnerable from competitors. So it still feels that this formula is kind of a bit exhausted, or it can easily be replaced by another title. It doesn't have this moat anymore compared to maybe some other formulas. But still, we know it's engagement. We know engagement is higher because it's a free to play, but still, ultimately, when you are selling extra content, you want to have as many players as possible playing the game. So I think it's also an interesting learning, and then we'll see what will happen next. Another game we could have added here maybe is maybe Destiny 2. It's also more of some kind of live service game that's continuing the lore. So they could have done Destiny Forever, but they decided to go with Destiny 2 also to make people start from scratch rather than keeping all their knowledge and their experience and their inventory.
Manu, I think I would have loved to see PUBG as well at one point in the future, maybe.
I had PUBG in there, and it's not anymore. But they did also some nostalgic event, but it was just the introduction of maps. But there's not been anything meaningful enough, and there was nothing worth mentioning in that case. But I think yes, that's totally the time. Another game I'm thinking more for a reset strategy would be Warframe. Because Warframe, I can't even start Warframe right now. There are so many mechanics and stuff and everything that you're completely overwhelmed. It has become such a massive game, and I think that's probably one of the challenge why they not have more players coming. So that would be a perfect candidate for a reset, if you ask. Like Warframe Classic would be interesting.
Well, it's funny because they recently did like Warframe 1990 or 19, and that is it. It's not drawing on their own actual history, but it's a similar idea. Like let's conceive of a world in which this is simpler.
Yeah,
it's a funny thing with all of this because like the nature of live service means that they change and grow over time, but you get it into a live service game because you like it. And I think that this is sort of a function of that, is that people want to play the game they like, and they're like, oh yeah, I like that game.
I do have a note specifically, Manu, about what you mentioned about the, I will call it, we always talk about barrier to entry, but barrier to re-entry.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Fortnite specifically, right?
Yeah.
I just click takes less than a minute from starting my console or PC into being in an actual game controlling my character.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have to read up or
And because Fortnite doesn't have RPG mechanics in that way, you're playing the same game as everyone else. Because it's like Destiny. I think it's a great example of this because honestly, everyone that is a potential Destiny player has probably played Destiny at some point. So lapsed players are a much more important demographic for them than new players.
Yeah.
But it's just so hard. You play Destiny hard, you get all your shit, and you're up at a point, and then once you drop off that, it's so difficult to get that momentum again. And you show up, and you just don't know what you're doing.
And in a game like Destiny, you might not have a lot of players that are available to play the raids with you because these are like old raids, but these are beginners raids. So I don't know how they balance that specifically, but I think if you start, I think I lapsed and relapsed a few times on Destiny, and every time I came back, I feel, well, there is nobody right now. Where is everybody? They're probably playing in other areas than where I started the game.
Yeah, like if you started playing with a bunch of people, then you all gradually dropped off. The odds of you relapsing at the same time are basically zero.
Also,
gentlemen, we're at the end right here, right now.
Yes.
Is that correct? No. So, do we have time for more questions? Would you like to?
How much do we have now in terms of time for the meeting?
I mean, we've been doing this for an hour now.
I can have like one more question, but I also don't want this to be overwhelming long, so that people actually can listen.
Maybe two. Give me two.
Okay.
That's okay. I'll start with the first one, and maybe this is targeted mostly to Dave. Is there anything surprising or unexpected you learned as you were reading this report or hearing Manu speak about it?
I mean, honestly, this is for one thing, we have talked about this before, both on the podcast and personally. So these are things that I've thought about already and thought about in this context. So I wouldn't say necessarily, but I just it's such an interesting. It's a powerful feature both on a mechanical and an emotional level, I think it's only going to become more important as live service continues, especially with the numbers we talked about earlier in the thing. These ecosystems are becoming more important in and of themselves, contained in themselves, not even necessarily with how they interact with the rest of the industry. And this is a function.
Okay.
I'm also very interested in like the reset thing, right? Destiny 2, Warcraft Classic. No one's ever tried to play this trick twice. And so I'm very curious to see if that will ever be possible.
Fair enough. Manu, do you have anything that was surprising while you were writing this report that stood out to you specifically?
I think the Xbox trend, where I was expecting players to play more games on Xbox. I think was a bit surprised with that. No, other than that, I understand there is a lot of numbers, there is a lot of digest, and I think you're just discovering the numbers through the presentation. So the good thing also with everybody can download the report that you can spend time to really understanding everything. But no, I think it's not such a bad picture as it was last year, probably. But there are still things that remains. There's not a lot of time left or not of money left for new games. I think that's the message. So if you want to be successful as a new game, you need to have very high standards of quality. You have to have a hook. You have to stand out either by using an IP or having an existing IP or having something that really makes you differentiate you from the rest of the team. And we've seen diverse.
And then you got to get lucky. You need all of that.
Yeah.
And then you got to get lucky.
Exactly. I mean, Helldivers 2, Pole World, Marvel Rivals are probably the 3 titles that managed to break through consistently from last year, and they all had something really made them special. So you cannot just try to reproduce the success of others before you. You have to come with something new, whether it's a brand new idea, whether it's a combination of 2 good ideas that have never been combined together. So yes, I think it's just a message that average doesn't work anymore. And also, you can have all the marketing budget in the world. You're also not going to be successful if your game doesn't have the qualities to be successful.
Yeah, live service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any comments about subscriptions, both inside of games? I mean, I'm not sure if I don't believe we covered Fortnite Crew as an example, but I'm actually very interested about subscriptions in relation to PlayStation Plus Essential, I believe it's called, or the higher tier, and then Game Pass. Any comments on that?
I think this presentation is mostly about engagement and not that much about monetization. We have some information about revenue, but we wanted to focus on engagement, and also it's not that easy to get this revenue information. It's a black box to understand what is the revenue generated by Fortnite Crew, for example. So we would like to know more about that, but unfortunately we cannot get this information. That's one of the challenge. So it's not that we don't want to talk about it, it's more that we don't have the data to actually talk about it.
Fair enough. Okay, I mean, Dave, do you have any final comments, thoughts you'd like to add, or?
No, I mean, I look forward to this report every year, and it's always fascinating to sort of look at all the things that we can guess and that we are thinking about on a sort of gut check level and put some numbers to it. And it's such a cool thing.
Cool. So I guess if you go to Newzoo.com, that's where you will be able to find the report.
Yeah.
Any other things, Manu, you'd like to add here at the end?
No, I think you can always reach me out if you want to discuss about it, or if you want to have more insights. This is the kind of thing we can do as Newzoo, or say on the consulting side, we can go deep dive. This is a free report, but we have also the opportunity to go deeper on specific consulting missions. But other than that, now very, very happy about the report, and I hope it will be very useful for many of you, many of the people in the audience.
I'm sure it is. Thank you so much for your analysis, Manu. This was terrific. It was fun reading it and also hearing you speak about it and break it down. Dave, thank you so much as well for being here and helping us understand the things that we're looking at. With that being said, I mean, we're well over an hour here trying to save time for both Manu and Dave. I'm sure they
and
have
the audience. Let's not forget about the old audience there.
The audience.
Yeah, I guess they have a fast forward button. We don't have a fast forward button because this is our lives.
Yes, thank you for playing the games as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Next episode.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.